Hi everyone, my name is GitKraken Ambassador Kevin Boss. Today I'm going to be evaluating some of the top Git GUI applications. I'll be evaluating GitKraken Client, Sourcetree, Fork, Tower, GitHub Desktop, and SmartGit. And for me, the way we're going to do this comparison is looking at how they perform some basic Git operations. That's clone a repository, create a branch to work on, create a commit with some changes on it, and then finally submitting a pull request back. Now, I won't make you wait until the very end of this video to know what my recommendation is. Anyone who's seen my content knows that I wholeheartedly recommend GitKraken Client as my Git tool of choice, but I encourage you to keep watching to see how it compares to the other tools. Let's dive in. Here we have GitKraken Client already installed on my machine. I've already connected it up to my GitHub account so that we can go ahead and clone the repository. So let's start there. So we'll click on the Clone a Repo button and then select GitHub as the integration that we would like to use. In this case, my repository is called Learn Git with GitKraken. We will go ahead and clone that repository, and then the big green Open Now button. When it opens up, we get a nice history graph showing all of the commits, our branches, and then more importantly, their relationship to one another. The graph by default shows reverse chronological, so that the newest stuff is at the top, and you can see how things go back and forth, because with Git, things can sometimes get a little bit messy. We can see our remote with a few branches. Branch A and B are way back here, off in the middle of nowhere, and we're up on the default branch of master up here. If we go through and hit view all files, we can take a look at all of the files in the repository. And then if we want to, we can just show this guy in a folder and then double click. So the entire repository is just a simple HTML page, a little bit of a description about GitKraken, obviously Rosie the Kraken. And then we can see Robert Dr. Frankenstein. And you'll note Robert is missing a T off the end of his name down here. And that looks like a bug that we should probably fix. We go back to our trusty GitKraken. We'll start by making a new branch. We'll call this one, how about Fix Robert? Seems like a good name. And then we want to edit the HTML page. So if we click on Index HTML, we can see this little pencil up in the corner says that the file is editable. So we can just type right in here rather than having to go to whatever editor of choice that you like to use. If we scroll down, we can find that we have our Robert Dr. Frankenstein header, and then this little Robert is missing his T. So we'll just go through and add that in, Control S to save the file, and we can see that now index.html is showing up in our unstaged files list. If we go ahead and close out of the file, we can see in our history graph, we've got this little dotted circle up at the top with a WIP, work in progress, which is what that stands for, showing that we've got one file here. If we click on it, we can see a nice diff showing that, yes, in fact, the change that we made was appending a T. Go ahead and stage that change there, and then we will create a commit and give it a reasonable message. We'll go through and commit that change there. And then finally, this has just made a local branch for us, so we want to ultimately get that change back into the main repository. So we want to push that and make a pull request. So we will click the push button here. GitKraken will confirm the remote and what we want the remote branch name to be called. We'll just take the defaults and say, yes, please. And then finally, we need to make a pull request. So there's a couple ways to go about doing this. One option is actually just to click and drag on top of whatever branch you want it to go onto. The other option is in the remote section. You can right click on the branch that you want to create the pull request to and go start a pull request. So you can see it's pre-populated the from and the to. Quick note, this UI, the from and the to, is actually inverted of what you will see if you do this on the GitHub UI as well. But we'll give it a nice description in here. Great. And then we will hit create pull request. Then if we want to, we can just jump straight to GitHub and take a look and verify, yes, the pull request is there. Built into GitKraken, you do also get a terminal bundled in here. In addition to the normal Git commands that you would expect, as long as you have the Git CLI installed, you get access to all of those. You also get the GK command, which gives you access to a lot of the GitKraken features. And makes for a nice seamless transition going from somebody who may be familiar with Git on the command line using GitKraken Client. So if we take, for example, the history file that we have here, and we say, let's take a history of the index.html. for example. You'll note that this now is just a quick and easy way to jump me straight into taking a look at that information. Okay, here we have Sourcetree opened up in its default setting. I've already gone through and set up a Bitbucket account, which it prompts you to do when you first install it, as well as connect it up to my GitHub account. We're going to walk through the same sort of steps, starting with going through and cloning the repository. So we don't need org repositories. And if I search, it doesn't find the repository. So let's go scrolling down. There we are. And we click the clone button here to go ahead and get the repository local. Let's change up the default clone directory to put it in the same location. Go ahead and clone that repository. Okay, and we see something very similar to what we saw in GitKraken. There's a bit of a history graph here, though my preference is definitely to have the history graph more prominent than just kind of a sidebar visual. But we can see sort of the same sort of information. Reverse chronological list of commits, some diffs as you click on them. We've got our list of local branches here, our list of remotes and the remote branches as well. If we go through and pop Explorer, that'll take us right into the directory that we just cloned into. We can open this guy up with VS Code. And just like we saw before, because we are now back on the master branch, my other PRs have not merged, Robert is missing the T in his name. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. Before we get too carried away, let's make a new branch called Fix Robert. Just going to be a running theme. Yeah, working copy of parent, check out new branch. That's what we want. Great. So we are on here, Fix Robert. We'll come down here. We'll add the change. Save the file. Very important. And then let's go through here. Their uncommitted change. We'll create a commit. Unstaged files. Verify the change. Go ahead and stage it. Adding T to Robert. Okay, we will go through and create the commit. And then let's go through and push that commit up. Okay, I guess we have to pick our actual. Go ahead and push that one up. And we have that guy there. Now, unfortunately, there is not a clean way to go through and open up the pull request from here. So I believe what we're going to end up doing is jumping actually out to the remote, where then we could go through and create the pull request here as well. So we can jump into here and say, we don't want that remote. I want my remote. And then I would like to be the Fix Robert, and then we can open up this pull request. So we should see the same sort of changes that we had here. Go ahead and create pull request. Totally works. And there's Sourcetree. Let's take a look at the next tool. Okay, next up we have Fork. And I'm actually pretty excited about this one because this one's a fairly nice Git client, all things considered. I've already gone to the effort of going through and connecting it up to my GitHub account. So what we're going to do is we're going to go File and then Clone. And you'll note right here, it pre-populated the repository URL for me. I had previously gone into my repository and just hit copy. And Fork is actually smart enough to go through and pull that repository URL right off your clipboard. We'll go ahead and clone it down into the same location that I've been using. Down we go. And once again, we get a reasonable view of the commit history graph. Nice little visual on the side. Not as front and center as I'd prefer, but still very reasonable to work with. We're going to go through and create a new branch. Fix Robert as is my custom. And then you'll note it automatically has a checkout after create and checkout. As you would hope, makes a new branch, switches to it, which is fairly common in most cases. We can drop over here to the open in, drop it, and then we can just immediately open up our repository right inside of VS Code, which is really convenient to have those types of options sitting right there. And then we'll come into our index.html and scroll all the way down. Once again, we find Robert lacking a T, so we will address that. Save changes, close. And we come back here and we can see it doesn't show the pending changes in the graph, but you do get the local changes here where you can see your staged and unstaged commits. Nice little diff visual here. We'll go ahead and stage that and say, yes, that's what we want. Seems appropriate. And then my big head is covering up the little commit button in the corner here. So commit one file. Let's see here. And then we're going to go back to our branch, right click, and we will push that up to origin. It detects that it's going to be a new branch. Create a tracking reference. Great. Push. And then we just need to go through and make the pull request for it, and then create pull request on origin here, which will bounce us right over to GitHub's UI. Go ahead and create the pull request. Oh, and this one actually, it ended up creating the pull request, and I'm going to have to fix this one because this ended up going against, when I said origin, because I was working on a fork, it went back to the other one, which is probably a reasonable default in a lot of cases. I'm going to just close this preemptively before someone gets really confused as to what's going on. Because this is not actually my fork, but go back here. Let's see, view on GitHub. This is actually where we want to be. So in this case, we'll end up doing the pull request here. In most cases, doing the pull request back to the original fork is probably a reasonable default. That's what most things would probably expect to happen. But in this case, I'm just powwowing on my own fork. Create pull request. Create pull request. And there we have it. Change submitted using fork. On to the next tool. Next up, we have Tower here. Some Mac users may be familiar with this one, as it used to be a Mac-only piece of software. Now it has both Mac and Windows ports. But we'll go over here and we will check out my GitHub repositories. I've once again already connected it to my GitHub account, and we will clone the Learn Git with GitKraken repository. Put it in the same location. Great. Go ahead and clone that. And apparently we have to switch back to it. Okay, once again, we've got sort of a chronological list here of the commit history. There's a bit of a graph drawn here. A lot of space given to showing the individual details of the commits. Let's go through and we will create a new branch. Okay, and we are automatically switched over to the Fix Robert section here. And then I believe we can go here and go open in Explorer, which will get us nicely into our directory. Fix Robert's missing T. Back to Tower, we can see up at the top, once again, the working changes aren't shown in this list here. But if we come up here, we can see the working copy. We can look at this. I do wish the diff would actually show a little more specific rather than just line-based. Let's see. Let's stage all the changes and there we are. Commit. Then we can come back over here. Let's go ahead and push. So once again, there's the remote ref. Push revision up. That push went up just fine. And then I believe we have to actually jump all the way out to fetch. Please fetch. Show me the remote branch. There we are. Thank you. Create new pull request from. I'm wondering, can I just. No. So let's create new pull request from here. Base branch is going back to master. Title. Create pull request. Then we should jump back out here to my repository. There's the pull request. Okay, onwards and upwards to the next tool. Here we have GitHub Desktop. As the name implies, it is from GitHub, so it obviously works great with all of your GitHub repositories. I've already gone through and connected my account, so we will grab our Learn Git with GitKraken repository and clone that. It remembers the location where I cloned before, which is convenient, so we'll go ahead and clone it. This prompt here is just because I am cloning a repository that is a fork. just wanting to know whether I intend to contribute back to the repository that I forked, or whether I'm just going to work inside of my fork doing my own thing. So we're going to go with, for my own purposes. You can see some of the defaults that it just changes depending on where you want it to go. So we're going to pick that one. There's not necessarily a commit history graph like what we've seen in some of the other tools. There is a history with a diff and that kind of thing that we can look at. But let's start with making our new branch. And then conveniently, this upfront dashboard has a lot of useful stuff for us. So we can open our repository right in VS Code, which is convenient. After the save, we can see that it shows up in the history list here, which is nice. We can give it our commit a title and description. We'll just leave the default of updating index.html. We'll go ahead and commit that. And then conveniently, it already kind of knows the logical flow here. So we will publish the branch out, and then we will create a pull request. And it set the base repository a little off, but we're going to come back here and say, no, we want to use our fork. We'll create the pull request. And there we're done. That's GitHub Desktop. Okay, next up we have SmartGit. I've already connected it to my GitHub account, so we're going to start with cloning an existing repository. This little drop down here lets you pick various hosting providers, so I'm going to pick on my GitHub account. And it's going to take it just a moment while it goes out and queries for all of my repositories. We learn Git with GitKraken. We'll go ahead and select that one. We will check out the default branch. I'm going to put this underneath my dev folder. Okay, and we can see we've got a history graph kind of front and center. There's kind of a lot going on over here with changes, commit message, all kinds of pending stuff. One thing you'll probably want to do is check these boxes because these will control which branches may end up being visible to you inside of the graph. Let's start here and let's create a new branch. Add a branch. Add the branch and check out. Okay, and then let's go over to the dev directory and we're going to open up our index.html file. Back here we can see that there is one change sitting here. We can see on the little diff here that there is an additional T that's being added. Commit. And then let's go through here and we should be able to push this out. Yes, please. Great. And then I believe if I expand origin, we can go through and create a pull request. And so we are not going to be going back to the Axosoft one. We are going to pick on the master branch on my fork. And then we will create the pull request. Pull request successfully created. So if we go and check it out on GitHub, one pull request there. And there we have SmartGit. Okay, just to recap, we took a look at GitKraken Client, Sourcetree, Fork, Tower, GitHub Desktop, and SmartGit. As I've mentioned before, I wholeheartedly recommend GitKraken Client. I use it daily in my development. It looks good, it's simple to use, and saves me tons of time so I can get back to coding. If you're looking for a Git tool yourself, I highly recommend you check it out.